Thank God it's Friday. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning, where great conversations await you. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's start off with oil prices. It bounced on Friday on closure of a major Canada to U.S. crude pipeline disrupted supplies, but both benchmarks were headed for a weekly loss on worries over slowing global demand growth. Brent's crude futures were up $76.70 a barrel. That's up 55 cents after it dropped 1.3% on Thursday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude rose 52 cents to $71.98 a barrel after it settled 0.8% lower in the previous session. News of an accident closing Canada's TC Energy Keystone pipeline in the United States prompted a brief rally on Thursday, but prices finally eased as the market took a view that the closure would be brief. More than 14,000 barrels of crude oil spilled into Greek in Kansas, making it one of the largest crude spills in the United States in nearly a decade. European Central Bank will take its deposit rate up by 50 basis points next week to 2%, despite the Eurozone economy almost certainly being in recession as it battles inflation running at 5 times its target. And staying in the market now, Chicago soybeans gained more grounds on Friday, trading close to their highest since mid-September. A strong demand led by top importer China underpinning the market, while soybeans were likely to post a weekly gain. Wheat was on the track for a 5th consecutive weekly decline, and corn was down for a 2nd straight week. The most active soybean contract on Chicago Board of Trade rose 0.1%. to $14.88 a bushel. Wheat added 0.1% to $7.47 a quarter of a bushel, and corn gained 0.1% to $6.43 a bushel. Let's come home now. One of the hottest issues in Nigeria's business environment remains the CBN's limit on cash withdrawal. The House of Representatives is asking the governor, Godwin Emefiele, to halt the policy and appear before it. Well, this was the conclusion at Thursday's plenary.
It's the last plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives, and the latest policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria is utmost on the mind of the lawmakers.
Federal Government of Nigeria Power Company budget.
Soon as the presiding officer calls the chamber to order, a member raises a point of urgent national importance.
It bothers whoever is sitting in this place, because most of them are from rural areas. Everything is being done in naira and cash, and somebody will wake up, it's like he owns this country, and make a policy that will start tomorrow. No consultation. People are forgetting that 80 or 90% of the people are not in rural areas. So we must do something to save the situation.
Lawmakers from both sides of the divide express divergent views on the policy.
More than 70% of our communities in this country do not have banking system. Few states, Lagos, Rivers, Kano, Delta probably might boast of about 70 to 75% coverage in banking system. Yet the CBN under Almighty Emefiele woke up and introduced this very heartless, as far as I'm concerned, decision.
If you want to stop banditry, make it impossible for them to have cash.
So you're speaking against the motion?
There shouldn't be cash available for them. That's one. Two, we passed the law on this floor. It's our law. The fact that CBN all this while had been sleeping and never went into their law, the law passed, and ensured that they follow it to the letter, didn't mean that it wasn't there. The law is there. They are only now waking up and now implementing what we sent out to them.
The action of the lawmakers is coming a day after some senators had raised concern over the policy. The Senate had proposed to hold a debate on the policy on Tuesday, December 13, 2022. Before putting the motion to question, the Speaker of the House proposed a joint session with the Senate on the issue.
I think you will allow me to speak to the Senate President and see whether, in compliance with the Act, we can have a joint session. And this is important enough.
While the lawmakers are planning to meet Mr. Emefiele on Thursday, December 15, 2022, they also raised questions on the source of funding for printing the new currencies.
So Mr. Emefiele has replied, says he has the approval of the president to go ahead with the cash limit policy and that there's no going back, according to him, that they may not be so strict, but there will be no going back on that policy. But we'll wait and see the meeting between the House of Reps and the Senate possibly, and then see if and when the CBN governor honors that invitation from the lawmakers, and then we'll take it up from there. But of course, we'll stay on this issue on our conversations here on Business Morning and Channels Television generally, so you can be sure that we'll give you all sides of that story and how it may affect you. And not going far away from that, about 3 weeks ago, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, unveiled the National Institute of Credit Administration with a major focus on transitioning the Nigerian economy from cash-based to a system that will serve as a catalyst for growth. Little wonder the new cash withdrawal limit. Well, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Institute of Credit Administration, Professor Chris Onalu, expatiates on this, especially in the face of the cash limit policy. He joins us virtually from Victoria Island in Lagos. Professor Onalu, good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, and good morning.
Yeah, so we heard Honorable Ndudi Elumelu there supporting this cash limit policy by the CBN, which is rare from conversations we have been having. And your institute is supposed to push for the e-economy. What's your stance? Are you in support of this limit from the CBN, or are you on the other side?
Well, thank you so much. I think that in a developing economy, in the country where we are trying to catch up with best practices, in a country where we are trying to sit comfortably in the Committee of Nations, where we can be attracted by other interests coming from across the world. I think we need to come up from time to time policies that can keep us at par with the developed world. Nigeria is a big country. Nigeria is highly populated with brilliant, intelligent people, exercising influence around international activities, business, investment, education, and what have you. It is imperative that such policies, as we talk about cashless policy coming from the central bank, particularly the one in focus, right? It should be seen as one of those instruments we need to be able to move forward as we should. I think the policy that central bank has just introduced is pretty good enough when you analyze it against the backdrop of compelling, situations, very difficult situations we have on our hands. We cannot but expect, more of stringent regulations that will help to tackle the problems we have on hand. The motive is not exactly to reduce the circulation of cash, the system, to disappear quantum of cash we have in the system, but also as a very strong weapon to deal with some intractable program that has been, difficulty that has been threatening the national unity and cohesion. I think the policy is rather coming too late. We ought to have these about 2, 3, 4, 5 years back to be able, perhaps would have been able to deal with some of the intractable problems that we have. All of us were aware that, terrorism has been a major constraint, kidnapping has been a major constraint, banditry has been a major constraint, even political vote buying has been a major constraint. And we need to really look at our peculiarity and deal with this, problem. The emergence of cash in our system has been a threat to national unity over the years. And that is why, from the part of the National Institute of Credit Administration, we saw that what we need is a cashless system that is underpinned by a vibrant credit economic activities, where we can go about our day-to-day economic activities without really carrying much cash around us. This has created a red flag for all of us. And I think the policy rolled out recently by central bank cannot but be described as absolutely appropriate. Regardless of certain problems, it will come up with. Policies are designed to correct certain ills. Good policies are not to be 100% welcome. But when you look at governance, we have entrusted ourselves into the hands of people that lead us. And there are much more things they know that we do not know. And the task of keeping the country together is a number one priority. And to me, I believe very strongly that the use of money to get to where we want to get to by certain people has really undermined our sovereignty in recent times.
All right, Prof. I believe what a lot of people are saying, I mean, we know the way the world is going is the e-world, cashless. But what a lot of people are saying is, why just drop it? I mean, I think from the House of Representatives, for instance, the time frame of implementation is a challenge. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the option is that a lot of individuals in the rural area who are unbanked would now be kind of restricted, or they could be in a tight corner, because even for us who are in the urban areas, when you do some transactions, you understand sometimes you are stuck. Do we have the infrastructure to carry the demand of e-transactions that this will bring? That's what people are saying. People are not saying the policy isn't good. They're saying, are we ready for it? Shouldn't we get the infrastructure ready first and get the people enlightened and educated first before we now drop the policy?
Well, two things I'll remark here. First of all, we know that we are in a very tough time right now, both in transition from the present administration to the incoming administration. And then we are still trying to manage the insecurity situation in the country, which is seriously undermine our future. And then the second point is, yes, I've remarked earlier that perhaps this policy ought to have come a little, much quicker than it is coming right now. And then you are addressing the question of preparedness of the infrastructure. Can we carry it down to where we want it to be? Yes, my reaction is we need to have a very peaceful transition. We really need to see through practice of democracy. We really want to see how the people don't have money, but have their life to themselves, can exercise their franchise to vote for people of their choice. The next Nigeria is very credible. It's important to all of us. We have all suffered a lot in this country, both economically, socially, and otherwise. So we need to read the handwriting on the wall. The era of vote buying should be over, and it's because people have quick and easy access to cash. That is why it becomes a worrisome situation. They can use the money to get to where they want to get to. Politicians will not be happy with this. That is the natural thing. They will not be happy with this, but then it has a spillover effect. Now, the market women, the people in the rural area, can they be part of this? Initially, they will not. I presume that in a matter of 4 or 5 months' time, some of these sections of the policies could be relaxed. Then would have been able to resolve some nagging issues that are likely to undermine our journey to the next governance in this country. I believe that as a country, even in other climes internationally, policies could come so sudden to certain section of people, but not to the majority. And I don't see how central bank could say that, okay, we are going to allow people in rural areas, we can excuse them out of this. We focus much more on commercial cities, highly populated places in the country. And if we do that, there will be a very negative effect. You will see certain things that were hitherto not existing at the rural level in terms of security. You be putting their life at risk because people know that money is available over there. I think initially what we need to do, we have to look at the percentage. How many people are negatively affected by these policies, and where is their concentration? If we know that, we can just go ahead and implement what we have right now. As I said before, we really need to get disappearance of cash from the system because it has done a calculable damage to our national unity. And I think I rather would say that the central bank ought to have come much earlier with this policy than now. But it is still okay. It's a shock because it is coming too close to major events that are now currently taking place in the country. First of all, you had Mr. President saying the other time that he wouldn't want to leave the country the way it is in terms of insecurity. And what does that mean to Nigerians? When the president is making a comment, a statement that, look, I'm not going to allow this thing to continue this way, the incoming government will have less to contend with in terms of security. What does it imply? What does it mean? And government is about consultation, collaboration with both local and international spheres. And if they have recently discovered that the cash is the major problem we have, because in all of this, let me go to the banditry and the kidnapping and all sorts. How do people come about with sophisticated weapons? How do people lay ambush and kidnap people, and the next moment they are asking you to bring so much ransom, and because you have the money in your either in your house or you have a quick access to the bank, you can call for the money and it comes up, and then you go and pay the ransom. What does that mean to us? You see, I do not like the way certain opinions are expressed. We have to allow this country to become a country that all of us will be proud of.
Exactly, Prof. A country that everybody will be proud of. So, because at this point now, what do we do to make those in the rural areas who would be most affected by this, how do we make them feel included and considered? I mean, if we want to make the country a country that everybody will be proud of.
You see, I come from Kogi State, and my village is Elele Ibaji. And the distance between Ida, where you have the Federal Polytechnic, and where my mother lived and died, my father lived and died, and my siblings and my other community members are still there, it's about 40 miles. Now, these people are typical farmers. They only come to Ida, sell what they produce, and buy a few things and go back. If we are to be honest and sincere to ourselves, people don't have enough cash in their 4,000, 50,000 mark. It's enough for them to buy something within the limit of their resources and go back and make use of it to their own life benefit. I do not think, if we are not addressing the issue, I do not think that the limit placed here can create a permanent damage to the economy. Yes, we have markets today, they carry around cash. We are used to that. And policy has to come sometime to address that. And I can assure you that within 1, 2, 3, 4 months, there will be massive adjustment. My worry is that these policies should not be jettisoned by the coming administration. These policies should be allowed to work. We should drop pressure. This hasn't helped us hitherto. We are people that, we in really sense, we do not want to, align ourselves with best practice. If you go to UK, go to the United States, there's a limit of cash you're allowed to carry. Even Nigerian banks that are in the UK There is a limit of cash. Go to UK and tell them you want to withdraw 500, you want to withdraw 1,000. They will look at you somehow. We have the means. Now that will connect me to the next issue of absence of cash-based economy will lead us to credit-based economy. People should have credit cards in their pocket. You go to wherever you want to go to, shop around, and then the clearing system is taken care of by between your bank and where the merchant where you bought your items from. We should de-emphasize the presence of huge cash around us. This is just the beginning. But as people respect policies and the policymakers insist on implementing it within a short time without any sentiment whatsoever, it will strengthen cohesion in our economy. It will strengthen in our society, it will strengthen the vibrancy of our economy, and people will be very happy to see that we all belong to Nigeria. The process might not be easy, but we've got to start it.
Yeah, Prof. Well, as you've said, Nigerians are very good with adjusting. But let's look at the issue of the credit economy that you mentioned. I do know that one hurdle to spreading that economy has been the issue of data. As an institute, what are you doing to ensure or to at least accelerate the growth of credit economy and transactions and activities in that area?
We have already begun, and I must give it to the central bank that the process for data collection has begun, because when you have your BVN, you have your national identification number, that's all that we need. The next thing would be to properly map out the street and register the street in accordance with the provision of the law, that people shouldn't be able to change addresses so easily. And even if they do, they can be easily traced to where they are. And so that credit is basically premised on who is the person that is subject of credit, who has taken credit, and is they making good use of it or is running away. If that data of a thing is resolved, then we can be sure that the credit economy is on course, because apart from the business credit, you are largely going to have consumer credit where individuals will have access to buy whatever they want. But then, in the case of default, how easily can it be tracked down? And that is the foundation is somewhat late. We can get that sorted out through the BVN, through the national identification number that we have. And then, as I said, what next we need to do to make sure that people are living at where they say they are living, and people are stable on their job. People have the national statistics, National Bureau of Statistics, to be able to collect information that is basically reflective of the lifestyle of the people and the geographical component of the country and the people where they reside in. So once that is in place, the issue of data collection would have been over. And then we have Credit Bureau. Credit Bureau will now have access to those data easily collected, and so that if you as an individual or business organization, you take credit from one side and you put and you leave that in default position and move on to the next one, and then you can be easily traced. And with that, we are getting closer to becoming an organized society, an organized economy, and the consumption will be high up there because you have access to whatever you want in life within the limit of your resources.
Yeah, I wonder how long that will take for the Nigerian economy, but we do hope it doesn't take too long. Professor Chris Onalu, Chief Executive Officer of National Institute of Credit Administration, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're still on this issue. That's the issue of CBN's cash limit policy. And we'll talk about that more from another perspective after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. We're still looking at that cash withdrawal limits, the limit on cash withdrawal policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And we have the Chief Executive Officer of Center for Promotion of Private Enterprises, Dr. Muda Yusuf. He's been trying to get to us for hours, but unfortunately, the situation on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway stops him from joining us physically, at least for now. Good morning, Dr. Yusuf. Thank you so much for your efforts. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it at this time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ine. Good morning.
Yeah, but share with us your thoughts. We just spoke to Professor Nalo, who is the Chief Executive Officer of National Institute of Credit Administration, and his views are that this policy is coming rather late. It should come earlier than now because Nigeria may just be trying to catch up with the world. The world has gone and so this is even coming late.
Well, the truth of the matter is that we have made significant progress as far as going electronic or going digital is concerned. The payment system in Nigeria, in our financial system, is one of the best that you have around the world. I shared some statistics earlier with you. Unfortunately, I'm not there to speak to it. Electronic payment in the first 9 months of this year was over 270 trillion naira. Trillion naira. POS payment in the first 9 months of this year was about 6 trillion. Mobile payment was over 4 trillion in the first 9 months of this year. So when we talk about our status, our performance as far as cashless is concerned, the Nigerian economy, this country is far ahead of many other countries. No, we are ahead of many of the advanced economies as well. If you look at that slide that you are showing on your screen now, apart from Norway and maybe Sweden, we are ahead of many other countries. When you relate our cash to our GDP, because that is the way to measure it. Many advanced countries are still at around 10% or something. Nigeria is just 1.8% cash to GDP ratio. That's a good measure of how we are doing as far as the cashless economy is concerned. So the point to make here is that you don't fix what is not broken. All this process, all these exercises are unnecessary, and it will just hurt the vulnerable segments of our economy. And that is the point that the National Assembly was making. If we are embarking on any policy process, we have to be inclusive. We have to bear in mind the vulnerable segments of the society. We need to bring as many people on board as possible. And we need to expand the scope of consultation. That is the point that was being made by the National Assembly. And I'm hoping that the CBN will take that on board. We have made progress as far as cashless is concerned, but we need to worry about the vulnerable sector. And when I talk about vulnerable sector, I'm referring first to the informal sector of the economy. Because when we talk about resilience of the Nigerian economy, it's coming largely from the SME, from the micro enterprises, and from the informal sector of the economy. That is the source of the resilience of the Nigerian economy.
All right, Doctor.
In spite of all the challenges.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, but I mean, you mentioned the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, to be specific, and we heard Honorable Ndue Lumelu there talking about the issue of banditry insecurity, that this might be starving them of cash, and it might be a way to also fight insecurity.
You see, the CBN cannot do everything. The CBN is in manufacturing, it's in agriculture, it's in tourism. The CBN cannot do everything. And we need to come to terms with that. There are statutory institutions who are supposed to deal with issues of crime, cyber crime, financial crime, physical crime, and all. We have institutions for that. We have the Financial Intelligence Unit that is supposed to monitor the movement of either electronic payments or even cash payments. In the banking system today, there's a threshold above which whatever transaction you do must be reported statutorily. So the Financial Intelligence Unit, that is their job. The CBN cannot abandon its own job and begin to do other people's job. This is going to hurt the economy. It's going to hurt the informal sector. It's going to hurt the distributive trade sector. The trade sector accounts for about 40% of our GDP. In 2021, the trade sector contributed 21 trillion to the GDP of this country. They are one of the largest employers of labor. If you now throw this in and you cripple activities at the retail end, in the rural areas, where there's a lot of commodity trading taking place, people are selling grapes in bags, and these transactions sometimes are in millions. And if people say they don't have confidence because there are no banks around them, I mean, they have a right to also exist. They have a right to do business. So we should draw a line between even regulatory actions and even the fundamental rights of the citizens. We should interrogate some of these things.
All right, Dr.
So
Yusuf.
if there are boundary issues, vote buying, let other institutions deal with that.
All right,
it's not the duty of the citizen to now make it core function.
All right, Dr. Yusuf. So, assuming that the CBN find the House of Representatives, they're proposing a joint meeting with the Senate and possibly the CBN governor also going there to talk to them. Assuming that all fails, because the CBN governor has already said he has the approval of the president and that there's no going back on this policy. Assuming that the CBN goes ahead with this 20,000 naira limit daily and 100,000 for individuals, 500,000 for corporate, what kind of impact can we expect to have or to see in the economy? Of course, you talked about the trade sector. You talked about, of course, the people in the rural area, the unbanked. What impact can we expect, especially seeing the season, the politics and the festive season that we're in?
So it's going to slow down economic activities. It's going to cripple some activities, especially in the trade area. And you know, those who are traders are just part of the value chain in production. Because when people produce, they don't sell directly to consumers. It is the traders that make these products available to consumers. So if the traders are having issues with the velocity, the momentum, the tempo of economic activities or transactions because of this challenge with cash, then it will affect even the manufacturing sector. It will affect those who are producing. Because the traders are the customer-facing end of the value chain in business or even in production. So it's going to have a systemic effect. And in any case, I don't expect the CBN to impose itself on the National Assembly. The National Assembly, even the president is accountable to the National Assembly. The CBN is just an institution of state. So I don't think that should happen. The CBN has autonomy, yes, but autonomy is not absolute. You have to be accountable to somebody. Some people have said you are accountable to the board. What is the chairman of the board of CBN? So how much accountability can you get from that? So the National Assembly is the ultimate. The National Assembly has the power to even remove the president. That shows how powerful they are. So I expect him, at least, to be humble enough to listen to the voice of reason and of the National Assembly. All right, Dr. Yusuf. What are we fixing? What is the problem? Cash as a percentage of money supply is just 6%. You show the graph there. Cash is the smallest component of money. So we are already cashless. So I don't know what the CBN is after.
Dr. Yusuf,
it's unnecessary.
Just before we let you go, at what point then do you think that Nigeria, because I mean, the other opinion or conversation is the world has gone cashless. I know you said we have made a lot of progress, but we do know that, I mean, we go to countries like Kenya, if you go to the open markets, they don't use cash. You go to, I went to some open markets in South Africa a couple of years ago, and they don't use cash. At what point do you think Nigeria will be ready to get to that level. Perhaps this policy is supposed to catapult Nigeria to that level.
I don't agree with. We are already ahead of many of these countries that you mentioned. Every economy needs some measure of cash. And you measure the intensity of use of cash by comparing the cash to your GDP. Cash to GDP in Nigeria is 1.8%. In United States, it's about 10%. Even in this Kenya, I'm not sure that we are doing as well as we are doing. Even in the urban centers, how many people use cash anyway? You go to a supermarket, many people are carrying their ATM card. They are using POS. POS transaction in the first 9 months of this year was over 6 trillion naira. What is the total amount of cash that we are talking about? We are already ahead of all of these people, unless people are not interpreting the data properly or they don't understand the data. This should not be an issue. This is the least of our problem. And we should not go and disrupt the business of our rural people, our informal sector, because they have enough troubles already. I mean, you know how things are? Look at the value of the naira. And the CBN is saying that go to stock ATM with only 100 naira and 200 naira. What can you buy with 100 naira these days in this economy? I mean, it's a very punitive policy. It should not stand at all. It should not stand.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, thank you so much for your efforts staying in traffic for hours. And yet, I mean, I'm glad at least we were able to get your views on the program. Thank you so much and have a safe drive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
you. Okay, so let's see if this cash withdrawal limit is affecting the market with Aniti Edet. Hi, Aniti.
Good morning, Ini.
Good morning, Aniti. So, well, I know that word on the street is we have already, according to Dr. Yusuf there, we have a lot of e-transactions already. And I know yesterday Anita did tell me that, oh man, you are E already. So this conversation doesn't really disturb you, but exactly. I bet it will disturb your mother and your relatives.
Yeah, and lots of other my dependents.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and not just the dependents, even your service providers, your dry cleaners.
Yes, you know, yesterday mechanics. We had the Mobile Money Agents Association president here, and there are about 1.4 million of them.
Yeah.
Imagine what will happen to them, because how do they access cash for their customers? You know, so that, of course, is another threat to employment in that area.
Especially when you look at it that Nigeria is still running a cash-based economy. We're not yet ripe for the credit-based economy like other advanced economies like the United States and the UK, where
Dr. Yusuf says we have made a lot of progress based on the data made available for,
for data is one end, and then the fact is on the other end. But well, let's get to the market side of the story. So because if you want to dwell on this, there's lots of issues to be discussed, and you just can't
and that's why I mean we've decided we're going to stay on this issue for some time until maybe after the meeting. We know that they're supposed to have a meeting. The joint House of Reps and the Senate are supposed to meet to have a conversation, and they've also invited the CBN governor, to appear on Thursday. Before then, I think they're supposed to meet on Tuesday. So we'll follow the story, see what comes out of it. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe there'll be an adjustment, because the CBN governor said there's no going back on the policy. Perhaps there might be an adjustment on the limits, if that will be more inclusive and get more buying from Nigerians. But we do know that the CBN is busy at this time, cracking its head and strategizing on how to deal with the different questions which different sectors of the economy have been bringing up concerning this.
Well, of course, we always keep our attention on the financial markets, because the financial markets is more like the that's where you feel the pulse of the Nigerian economy, particularly because
maybe you should give us the numbers from yesterday.
I will give you the facts behind the figures of the trading across the three markets. And so, starting with the markets, we're starting with the equities markets. of course, we were having some kind of surprise that the market was going in the bullish trend. It's a sustained bullish trend, which started from November, the midweek of November. But then at the close of Thursday's trading session, it retracted by 61.35 basis points, or almost the same margin which it had on Wednesday, which is 0.13% decline. And in Naira terms, that translates to about more than 32 billion naira, 33.42 billion naira loss. And this is no thanks to losses from the telecom giant MTN Nigeria. It fell by 2.27%, while some of the key components of the market countered the gains by some of the blue chip listed equities. Now, to give us more details about that market, let's talk to Seun Dosumu, the head of investment research at Parthian Securities Limited. Thank you for joining us, Seun.
Good morning. Thank you. Good to be on the show.
Okay. Yes, we were reveling in the market, sustaining that bullish trend. At some point, most of us, it had defied our expectation from analysts to traders and so even some investors. But then we just saw that decline, which came in the midst of a positive market breadth. So now, can you tell us more about this market and what to look out for next week, taking into cognizance the November inflation report, which will be released by the National Bureau of Statistics by next week?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So we saw that the market closed in a negative yesterday, and that was largely due to the decline we saw in MTN, as you mentioned. Like we know, the market does not move in a straight line. So, I mean, at some point, there was bound to be some form of correction, which we saw yesterday. This was due to MTN. Going forward, we expect the positive momentum to be sustained. And why am I saying that? I mean, that is because right now, investors are targeting dividend yield. If you look at activities in the fixed income market, at the last auction, the auction settled at 13.1%. The average T-bills rate is about 8.5%. Now, if you look at the dividend yield for some stocks, especially the banks, I mean, look at the dividend yield for GTCO is about 14.3. Dividend yield for Zenith Bank is about 14.1%, and the likes, and the same thing too for the banks. They are double digits. You'd see that the return that you stand to make from buying these stocks will be much better than actually placing funds right now in the treasury bills market. So we expect to see more investors, flow into the equities market, especially going into next week, and even for the rest of the year. I mean, as at yesterday, the performance, based on the performance was already at 1.48%. That is if you're looking at the performance from the start of the month till yesterday, it was at 1.48%. And if you also look at the year-to-date return, the year-to-date return has done 13.2% already. I mean, coming from the 1.7% decline that we saw in November. So actually, activities are picking up. We expect investors to cherry pick, that is, pick selected stocks, especially on the top 10 most capitalized stocks. I mean, these are the stocks that actually drive the market, the overall market. So we expect to see more position taken in those stocks going forward. And definitely, investors too would also focus on those stocks that pay good dividends. So I think the equities market activities are starting to pick up. I mean, coming from the decline that started in the month of June, you see that June, July, August, September, October was actually in the negative. But from November, we started to see that positive move. In November, for the month of November alone, the market appreciated by 8.7%. So we expect December to also close in the positive.
Okay, so now, Seun, December is just starting. Today is the 9th of the month. And I'm really curious about how the market performance is, particularly when the market closed a day before in the red. So how are the stocks performing at the moment?
So right now, we're seeing a lot of activities in the banking sector. Right now, we would see more of that, and that is because these stocks actually pay good dividend. And when we analyze their third quarter earnings, we saw that a couple of them have done way better than they did for the previous year, and even better than what they did for the full year 2021 numbers. which just gives you an indication that they will most likely do better this year. I mean, if a number of stocks have done above 80% of what they did for the full year 2021, then I mean, whatever they do for the next quarter would just be an addition to what they've done. So we're seeing that in the market, and investors are reacting positively to that. We know that inflation numbers are coming out next week. Current inflation is at 21.1. Our forecast is that inflation would settle at 21.8%. That's for the month of November. And with that in mind, the place to actually make your positive real return is still the equity debt, because I mean you can actually cover that. You can make that return, and you can make positive return, real return in the equities market in a short period of time. That's another thing to take note of. In a short period of time, you can make that kind of return. So we expect more. We expect to see more funds flow into the equities market. We expect to see more participation, investors' participation in the market going forward.
Thank you so much, Seun, for your time on our program today. So that was Seun Dosumu, Head of Investment Research at Pantheon Securities Limited.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. I'm happy to hear that he said that my favorite counter, banking, is doing good.
Exactly.
I look forward to that because it was down yesterday.
Exactly.
Hope it recovers.
And that's where the money flows.
Of course. That's the most liquid counter right there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anita. I think Anita hands over to Ladi as he walks in with the crypto market and see if crypto is doing better than equities this morning. Yesterday was extreme fear.
Extreme fear.
And we're still there, extreme fear.
No, we're actually better, surprisingly, this morning. It's actually
what drove that?
We know how Fridays can be, But
but Friday is normally red.
It's normally red, but now we've had a poor week. From the beginning, we see Bitcoin struggling all through the week. So I guess we're getting that respite.
Yeah,
for Friday, getting some
I didn't know
pressure.
investors are still taking advantage of the reduction and all that, because sentiments are not very predictable at this time.
So once they see those cheap prices, we see them snap up that cheap Bitcoin. We see if we look at the sentiment there, Fear Greed Index this morning, we see it's at 26 points of 100. Better than what we had yesterday. We know we had extreme fear yesterday. We see the market cap, $858.20 billion there. That's up 2.14%. And we see volume traded, $37.82 billion. That's Bitcoin and the altcoins. All together, that's the volume traded. We see price of Bitcoin this morning, $17,224. That's up 2.41%. We saw the upward correction from that $16,700 level. We saw Bitcoin there get above 17K to 17,200. Big jump there. Volume traded $20.90 billion. And we see the price of Ethereum also there, $1,280. That's up bigger by 4.10% this morning. We see the top alts by market cap, all green. So it's a green market we're having this Friday. Hopefully that continues throughout the end of the day. Let's talk to Gilbert Jokpata now, financial market analyst. Hello, Gilbert.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gilbert. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's a green Friday. But let's talk about staking pools. Now, we see Chainlink's staking pool drew about $170 million in 2 days, despite the bear market. What drove that?
I love bear markets, not just because I have opportunity to buy asset at discounted rate, but because it's easier to spot assets to avoid, because the hype is down, and even way easier to find battle-tested assets or projects which are building through the bear market at discounted rate. For Chainlink here, they have kept building through the bear market, especially with this economic 2.0 plan, which is to create more of a vicious circle to increase the value of the network, fuel adoption of decentralized services, and then growth of Web 3.0 ecosystem. While this they are taking is an initiative for this Chainlink Economic 2.0 that enables token holders and node operators to earn a reward for securing the network of about 4.7% annual reward. But yet, they did not just raise over 170 million. They were able to fill the staking pool within the limited period of time, just I think about 2 days. And this is an indication that despite the bear market, there is still an overwhelming interest for projects that are still building through the bear market. You know, the numbers are quite interesting for Chainlink because they are down by about 65%. There was a decline of about 10% in this week. So this taking pool actually represents the Chainlink strength, community, and interest on the network. Despite whatever may be happening to price, there are people who still look at the intrinsic value they bring to the marketplace.
What are you expecting next week?
For Chainlink?
No, for the price of Bitcoin, we're seeing good price action this morning.
I just have to look at what the Feds may do, looking more of within. But despite this, we may actually see the price have a test, maybe to the 16K zone. But once that is done, we may see Bitcoin move about maybe 18,200. But I'm still expecting a short-term pullback, maybe at around 16 or below 16.
Thank you so much. That was Gilbert Jokpata there. We'll be watching how the market actually plays out today into the weekend. Maybe the weekend pumps might actually come up. Do you see the weekend pumps coming up this weekend?
Very likely. Very likely. It's already building momentum. If we just find emotions like sentiment change and people see that, okay, prices are looking healthy, it's normal for us to have the remaining 90% of people pour more into the market. So I'm not actually taking a possible price surge above this from still happening this weekend. It's still possible.
All right, that's it there. Thank you so much. That was Gilbert Jokpata giving us the details. So, it's there might be weekend pumps this morning. There's a possibility because it's been a tough week.
Just a possibility.
Just a possibility.
So you don't break hearts this weekend.
Exactly. So we'll just watch out for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laddie. See you at 1:30 for Business Incorporated.
All right.
All right, so that's it on the program today. Friday, thank God it's Friday. But just before you get into that holiday or weekend mood, please go out there and make the most of this working day. Make some money, make some profit, so you have money to enjoy the weekend anyway. Well, that's it. See you at 10 p.m. during the stock market report, and then we'll be back here on Monday. Tomorrow, which is Saturday, of course, we have capital markets, and Laddie Williams will be here to give you a summary of that. For me, I'll see you on Monday, God's grace. Enjoy your weekend. Make some money today. I'm Ini John McConnell.